Hello, my name is Francesca Wilmot, and I'm Associate Curator here at the Crocker Art Museum in Sacramento, California. I'm currently standing in Gallery 308, which is in the new wing, the Teal Family Pavilion, and I was invited to speak about an artwork in the collection, so I've chosen this work by Greg Ito called Traditions. So here at the Crocker, I'm responsible for the collections of contemporary art and photography. And this work was acquired in 2023, and it was painted in 2023, so you really can't get much more contemporary than that. So I arrived at the museum in January of this year, and this work has arrived after I did, so it was pretty exciting to be involved with this acquisition and the unveiling of this artwork, and I'm excited to tell you a little bit more about it. So I thought for today's talk, I would first tell you a bit about the artist, and then we can delve into this work and some of the symbolism within it. And then I wanted to also just wrap up by talking a bit about how it fits within the Crocker's contemporary collection. So this painting was done by the artist Greg Ito, as I mentioned, and he was born in 1987 in Los Angeles. And he's a fourth-generation Japanese-American artist, and his family has lived in Los Angeles for over 100 years. So from a young age, he was exposed to the arts. Various members of his family have creative practices, and in high school, he had the opportunity to do a pre-college program at Cal Arts. So that was when he really discovered his passion for art and decided to pursue a professional career as an artist. So from there, he went to the San Francisco Art Institute, and he received his bachelor's in fine arts from there, and was living in Northern California for a few years, but has since returned to Southern California. So a lot of Greg Ito's paintings are looking at his family history. They're exploring his identity and the complexity of what it means to be an artist living in California today. And so a lot of the symbolism within his work has dualities. He's holding contradictory ideas in tension. So if we look at this painting, Traditions, you can see the green ginkgo leaves cascading down from the top of the painting. And in Japan, ginkgo leaves are a medicinal plant that are traditionally used to prevent memory loss. So if you think about that in relation to the title, here he's thinking about remembering your ancestors and where you're from. So the ginkgo leaves here meet this group of orange flowers. And among those flowers is the California poppy, which is our state flower. And so you can see the hybridity of his identity playing out in the painting between the Japanese ginkgo leaves and the California poppy flower. Behind the flowers, we see this twinkling city grid, and I love this detail in the painting. You can see it reflected also in the night sky with these starbursts. And if you've ever flown over Los Angeles, this will be a familiar sight for you, just seeing the geometric layout of the city from above. This relationship between the grid and the sky above, for me, brings about this union between the earth and the cosmos, between ourselves and our ancestors and what came before us. So the left half of this painting is very tranquil and serene, and that's quite different from what you see on the right half. Here on the right half, we see these blue flames licking away at a Japanese shoji screen. And in Japan, shoji screens are semi-transparent screens that are used to divide the spaces of a home, to create a sense of privacy and intimacy within the home. And so they're really associated with domesticity. And here, as they're burning away, it makes me think about ideas of displacement. If you live in California or watch the news, you're probably well aware of the wildfires here in California. And so I think this is something that's very current and on a lot of people's minds. But for Greg Ito, it also speaks to his family's history and the displacement of his grandparents during World War II. So his grandparents in 1942 were forced to go to a camp during the Japanese internment, and they were taken to Arizona where they had to wait out the war. And I heard the artist say that they had 6 days to pack up their belongings and leave everything behind, their homes, their livelihoods, their friends, and then relocate. And this was based on an executive order by President Roosevelt. It required that all Japanese Americans and people of Japanese descent be forced into these internment camps because they were deemed an enemy. And now we know just how short-sighted that was. And so, as I mentioned, a lot of his symbols deal with duality, and the flames both represent destruction, but flames can also represent rebirth. And so for Ito, the Japanese internment camp was also a blossoming or an origin story for him. It was where his grandparents met and fell in love. And so that's really where his family can trace some of their history as well. So these symbols are really fraught and complicated. Greg Ito also pays homage to his grandparents through the composition itself. So he's using household paint, and that's something that he learned from his grandfather, who owned a sign painting shop in the Crenshaw neighborhood of Los Angeles. And he also uses the paint to create these really beautiful geometric blocks. And that's, again, adapted from the techniques in sign painting that he learned from his grandparents. I love this painting because it touches upon the cyclical nature of life. He's thinking about death and rebirth. He's thinking about our family histories, and also about the cycles of xenophobia and inclusivity that are continuing to come up for us today. So it's not too often that we talk about the donor of an artwork and their motivations behind it, but there's a really lovely story that I wanted to share there as well. There's a nice synchronicity between the donor's motivations and some of the themes that I just talked about with this painting. So this work was given by a local businessman here in Sacramento. His name is Shondell Stevenson. And he approached the Crocker last year as his grandmother's 85th birthday was approaching. And he really wanted to make a special gift in her honor. And so we directed him to the artist, Greg Ito. And because of Shondell Stevenson, we were able to purchase this artwork for the collection. And so he dedicated this work with gratitude to Georgia Stevenson for planting the seed that grew into a lifelong love of the arts. And so I think that it works so nicely with the themes in the painting and how Greg Ito is also honoring his grandparents through this work. And so I had the privilege of unveiling this work at Georgia Stevenson's 85th birthday on March 17th of this year. And I was able to share some of these stories about the painting with her and her family. And it was a really beautiful moment that I'll definitely remember. So finally, I wanted to talk about this artwork's relationship to our contemporary collection. So the Crocker Art Museum has been contemporary since its very beginning. I love to walk through our galleries of early California art and look at paintings by artists like Thomas Hill that were painted in 1871 and acquired in 1872. And I think that works nicely with Greg Ito's painting, which was painted in 2023 and acquired this year. And so the Crocker is also known for its collection of California art. And Greg Ito, as I mentioned, is a fourth-generation Japanese-American artist who was born and raised in California. And I think he's part of this new generation of artists who are living and working in California that are complicating that identity and that are contributing to international discourse about migration, about identity politics, as well as the environment. And so I feel really fortunate that we are able to bring this work into the collection and continue to move that story forward and think about what does it mean to be a California artist today. So as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm standing here in Gallery 308. in the Teal Family Pavilion. And this artwork has found a home here. It's made some friends already in the gallery. So we have Robert Bechtel's painting over to the right here. And his painting is of a French door, and it beautifully corresponds with the Japanese shoji screen that's here in traditions. Just around the corner, we have Stephen Kaltenbach's painting of his father, which he painted over the course of 7 years. And it's a devotional painting in memory of his father, who was dying at that time. And so I think that also corresponds nicely with Ito's painting. And then just to the left, we have a painting by Adia Millet, and it's called Shelter, I believe. And it's looking at ideas of home and shelter that also appear in Ito's painting. And also, Millet is using this really vibrant geometric color blocking that we can see in Ito's painting. So I think it fits really nicely within our collection, and I really hope that you'll come out and visit us here at the Crocker and see the painting in person. Thank you.